Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Friday, August 23rd. Today is day 322 since October 7th. A New York Times article yesterday on the effects of the Gaza war on children was called "The War in Gaza is Making Thousands of Orphans." And I wanted to just mention a little bit of what that article entailed. It said the war in Gaza is taking children from parents and parents from children, undoing the natural order of things, rupturing the basic unit of Gazan life. It is making so many orphans in such chaos that no agency or aid group can even count them. Medical staff are saying that children are left to roam hospital hallways to fend for themselves after being rushed there, bloodied and alone. Wounded child, no surviving family. Some of the hospitals have labeled them. Neonatal units are housing babies whom there's no one left to claim. In Khan Yunis, a volunteer-run camp has sprung up to shelter more than 1,000 children who've each lost one or both of their parents. And one section is dedicated to only survivors, children who've lost their entire families, except perhaps for a sibling. There's a long, long wait list. The United Nations estimates that at least 19,000 children are now surviving apart from their parents, whether living with relatives or other caretakers, or maybe living on their own. The effects of war have the most devastating effects on children, and it is time that the devastation that has been wreaked upon Gaza be brought to an end. In terms of hostage and ceasefire negotiations, the United States, Qatar, and Egypt continue to work to convene a summit to negotiate a deal that is supposed to happen in Cairo tomorrow, Sunday, despite the assessment of sources involved in the talks that the chances of reaching an agreement are slim. The decision of whether or not to hold the summit or to cancel it is stuck between two bad options, was a quote from a foreign source to Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper. They said, in the existing situation, it seems the summit would be a waste of time if it isn't possible to extract some constructive progress in the talks from it. But announcing the summit's cancellation could be even more destructive and might lead to the talks' total collapse. It's important to be reminded also that Hezbollah and Iran have postponed, or at least there have been conversations about the possible postponement of retaliatory attacks on Israel because those negotiations have continued. Egypt and Qatar will transfer to Hamas a new Israeli proposal on the issue of the Philadelphia route and the Rafah border crossing, which was submitted in Cairo on Thursday by the Mossad chief David Barnea and the Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar. An Israeli source told Haaretz that this is relative progress, as Egypt refused to submit Israel's previous proposal on the issue last week, in which a foreign diplomat had defined it as a non-starter. Hamas still has not agreed to attend the upcoming meeting, but a senior Israeli official involved in the talks argued that Hamas needs a ceasefire and its distress could lead it to make compromises that would enable the deal to move forward despite disagreements that are currently on the table. The White House spokesperson John Kirby said that reports that the talks are near collapse are not accurate, that there has been progress that's been made. He said the CIA chief, Bill Burns, is in Cairo and that talks with Israeli intelligence chiefs are constructive. And Prime Minister Netanyahu and his wife met with 6 hostages released from Hamas captivity in November and some of their family members. Ella Ben-Ami, whose father Ohad is still held hostage, said she left with a bad feeling that the deal's not going to happen soon. In terms of Israel and Lebanon, 3 rockets were fired from Lebanon at North Israel in the past 24 hours, and Lebanon's health ministry reported that 2 people, including a child, were killed in a strike that was attributed to Israel in the country's south. Reports in Lebanon earlier today said that 1 person was killed and another was severely wounded in a strike on a motorcycle in Atarun. The Saudi news outlet Al Hadath reported that 1 man was killed in the village of Akrath in South Lebanon, and the Hezbollah-affiliated Al Mayadeen reported that a drone attacked the car that he was in. Lufthansa announced that it will extend their cancellation of flights to several destinations throughout the Middle East through September 2nd. Shin Bet Chief Ronen Bar warned Prime Minister Netanyahu, ministers, and the Attorney General that Jewish terrorism in the West Bank is endangering Israel's existence. According to a letter that was published by Israel's Channel 12 News. In the letter, Bar wrote that Jewish terrorist leaders want to cause the system to lose control, causing indescribable damage to Israel, adding that police incompetence in the face of these acts and perhaps a sense of hidden support for them are increasing considerably. He reflected on the significant expansion of the individuals that are taking parts in these extremist acts. Barr noted that the perpetrators of Jewish terror have lost all fear of administrative detention due to the conditions that these Jewish actors get in prison and funds that they receive after their release from Knesset members, as well as the legitimacy and praise alongside of the delegitimization campaign against the defense officials. The letter mentioned far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir's recent visit to the Temple Mount Haram HaSharif, when hundreds of Jews prayed alongside of him in violation of the status quo, adding that such acts could drag Israel into profuse bloodshed and change the state's face unrecognizably. After Ben-Gvir's subsequently called to fire Barr, the Defense Minister Gallant released a statement saying, in the face of Ben-Gvir's reckless actions that threaten Israel's national security and create internal division, the head of Shin Bet and his people are performing their duty and warning against serious consequences of these actions. In an open letter, President Herzog asked that the production and holding of the ceremony marking the October 7th massacre would be coordinated by the president's residence instead of by the premier's political ally, Transportation Minister Regev, whose appointment led to many kibbutzim to announce that they would not attend nor participate in the ceremonies. He said, so we will be able to lower the flames of dispute and prevent any unnecessary quarrels or conflicts. An Israeli soldier was killed in combat in Gaza in the last 24 hours. Other updates about Gaza. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Ramallah announced that they have completed preparations for a polio vaccination program for children in Gaza, which would include establishing vaccination centers and training medical teams to vaccinate patients, and requested to vaccinate as soon as possible all children in Gaza under the age of 10. The polio vaccine requires 2 different doses that have a month gap in between each dose. According to the health ministry in Gaza, the death toll there is at least 40,265 Palestinians killed and at least 93,144 Palestinians wounded since October 7th. In the West Bank, Defense Minister Gallant issued orders to detain without trial 4 Israelis who were suspected of involvement in a settler riot. We've been talking about that. That's what happened last week in that Palestinian village of Jit. It was called a pogrom. Jit, where there was there was an attack on 4 Bedouin Israeli women in the settlement of Gavat Ronen. Palestinian reports of the Israeli Defense Forces entering the West Bank city of Jenin also happened in the last 24 hours. Australia will take command of the Maritime Task Force in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden from October, its defense ministry said in response to the Houthi attacks. Finally, I wanted to let you know that I received a note from a dear friend of mine in Gaza who leads a humanitarian agency there. He said this about the recent evacuations that were just announced in Deir al-Balah. Yesterday, we had a staff vehicle of his humanitarian organization and a shooting happened on the road. It's the only road in what's called the safe zone. Luckily and miraculously, no one was injured. New blocks in Deir al-Balah are announced to be evacuated and the squeeze continues. I don't even know what to think. All I dream about is the end of this evacuation process. I know it won't stop as they wish to destroy every standing building or to kill every single one of us or to humiliate at least all of us. My son has to go through this road on his way to the hospital and back at the end of the day. It's less than 15 kilometers, but it takes 3 hours to drive. I didn't really understand, even knowing the cities or regions of Gaza. I've been there numerous times, but the degree and displacement of the people there and what that means. So I'll be creating a short video to summarize some of the displacement with some maps so that you'll be able to see these different areas where Deir al-Balah is in relationship to Rafah. Of the 2 million people plus that live in Gaza, many of them have been displaced not twice, 3 times, 4 times, or even more. numerous times replaced, and the areas that are supposed to be humanitarian zones that they've often been limited to are places where even those locations are not safe. Successive Israeli evacuations in Gaza, including the latest, which just happened, have displaced 90% of the more than 2 million residents since October, according to the United Nations. So continue to pray for peace, to call for a comprehensive permanent ceasefire. May these most recent conversations in Cairo on Sunday be successful. May God go before us. Amen.